Today, I'm delighted to say that we're joined once again by Blaine Gibson, the US wreck hunter or debris hunter who has found more pieces of debris from MH370 than anyone else. But more importantly, Blaine has raised awareness amongst local communities on the African coast and the surrounding islands to the debris from MH370 and encouraged them to hand it in. And in fact, in many cases, he's collected it from them and handed it into authorities. So Blaine's played a pivotal role in raising awareness and collecting debris of MH370. Today, we're going to talk about the 10 or so most important pieces of debris. And so over to you, Blaine, and welcome. And the first piece of debris, of course, was the Flaperon.
Yes, that's right, Jeffrey, and thank you for inviting me back. The Flaperon was the first piece of debris from Malaysia 370 that was found. It was not found by me. It was found on La Réunion by Johnny Begg and his cleaning crew in July 29 of 2015. And the reason it is so significant, it is confirmed as being from 9MMRO, the aircraft for Malaysia 370, and it's very significant for the drift analysis because of its early arrival. It shows that the plane did not crash way in the deep south, so it has been very helpful.
And indeed, it was, and it was breathtaking. I remember the phone call I got from Channel 7 in the early hours of the morning saying it had been discovered and I had to do a cross. So, yeah, it was very exciting. But the next piece was a fairing. Now, perhaps you can talk about that fairing.
The fairing was very significant. It was the second piece found, but it was the third piece reported because after I found No Step, Liam Lauder, a teenager in South Africa, saw that in the media and said, "Hey, I found a piece like that in Sai, Mozambique back in December." And so he went public with that. It was the second piece found, and it's also very significant because of its early arrival in Mozambique.
And talking of No Step, that's another insignificant piece and the first piece that you found.
No Step was the first piece that I found. Right after the Flaperon was found, I met Professor Cherry Patiarachi of University of Western Australia and asked him where to go look for 370 floating debris and when. And he told me about 2 years after the crash, go to Mozambique and Madagascar. And I did. And the
Yep.
first piece of debris I found was in Mozambique on a sandbank. And I got tremendous help from the local fishermen. I simply asked them, where do things wash ashore from the open Indian Ocean? And they told me that sandbank.
Well, indeed, it was right. Now, the next piece that you nominate on your top 10 or so is Roy. Now, talk to us about Roy.
Roy is one of the most significant pieces for the drift analysis because it arrived at the end of December in 2015 and was photographed by a dentist on the beach with all sorts of barnacles on it. He didn't know what it was. It stunk because of the barnacles, and he just took a picture of it. Then, a few months later, in March, Niels Kruger found the same piece washed ashore on the same beach, not far away from the spot, but with no barnacles on it. So we had the arrival date nailed down in December of 2015 and the clean piece without the barnacles on it 3 months later. And we know that the barnacles dry and bake in the sun and sandblasted by wind and eaten by predators. So that's why a lot of the debris does not have barnacles on it. Roy is very significant because it is the westernmost piece of debris that was found. that is on the southern coast of South Africa. And for it to arrive at the end of December 2015, as early as it did, points to a crash site that is most likely north of 34 degrees south. So it is a major fund.
Next one on your list is this stowage closet door. Perhaps you can talk to us about that and tell viewers what that's all about.
That was the first piece of interior cabin debris that was found. It was found by two tourists from La Réunion on the island of Rodriguez, of Mauritius and Rodriguez. And it was so significant because there were a lot of people who were claiming early on theories that Malaysia 370 was controlled ditching intact underwater, that the main fuselage was intact underwater. Well, this proved that it was not.
Indeed, you're absolutely right. It was
cabin.
Yep, it's a crucial piece of evidence that tells us a lot about the actual crash itself.
It does. And interestingly enough, I had been looking for debris on that same beach, Gravier in Rodriguez, about 6 months earlier and found nothing. So it is also significant in the drift analysis of 370 debris.
Now, the other thing you've got here, another one, is the left outboard flap.
Yes, the left outboard flap was found on Îlot Bernage in North Mauritius, and it is one of the three absolutely confirmed pieces of 370 debris by matching serial numbers. It is also one of the few pieces recovered from the left side of the plane. And a lot of people say that, oh, well, not all this debris is confirmed. Well, the debris is confirmed if it has matching serial numbers on it that can be definitely traced to that aircraft. But a lot of the other debris is almost certainly from Malaysia 370, just because small pieces of debris don't have serial numbers on them everywhere.
Well, the larger part of that debris has the serial number, but it's broken away and you've only got a fragment. Yes. But also the fragmentation of the debris tells you a lot about the devastation of the actual impact of the crash too.
Yes, exactly. The debris altogether tells us that this was a high-speed impact that shattered the plane tragically.
Now, one of the pieces that really fascinates me and so telltale is the monitor case, which you list on your top 10, or more like top 15. Tell us where you found the monitor case.
I found the monitor case on the north end of Riake Beach in Madagascar on June 6th of 2016. And that is the one piece of debris that when I held it in my hands, I literally could not control myself crying, because this is something that we all look at when we're on a plane, the TV screen. This may very well be the last thing that someone on board saw. It's something that appeals and moves anyone who flies on a plane. And it's significant because it shows that not only did the aircraft shatter on impact, not only did the main cabin shatter on impact, but even the seats inside the main cabin did. And that is a very sad reality, and it's very significant, and it was a very moving piece.
Indeed. Moving on, Blaine, the right wing panel. You've nominated that one as a significant piece.
Yes, that's because it was from the right wing, adjacent to the flaperon and the wing flap. And I found it on Riake Beach also on June 6th of 2016. And it was relatively intact. And it was almost certainly from the plane because it doesn't have any serial numbers on it. But it was a significant debris because it helps experts put together the right wing, the flaperon, the panel, and then the next one on my list, the Tanzania wing flap.
Yeah, indeed. You've also got a cabin interior panel.
Yes, the cabin interior panels, there were actually two of them that I got from local people in Ansirica. One was from a little girl who was using it to fan the flames of a wood stove at her grandmother's bungalow where we stayed. And the other actually had the snail trail laminate that is distinctive to Malaysia Airlines on it. And so these two pieces are just more pieces of interior cabin debris, which floats and which shows that this was a high-speed crash that shattered the plane.
Now we talked about the right wing, and I think you've already mentioned the right outboard flap. That was the largest piece of debris that was found. That was found in Tanzania. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You are correct. The Tanzania wing flap was found by fishermen on Pemba Island in Tanzania. It is confirmed absolutely from 9MMRO, Malaysia 370, because of matching serial numbers. And what is so significant about that is the experts were able to study it and determine that the wing flap itself was retracted at time of separation from the rest of the aircraft, not deployed. So it was not a controlled attempted ditching with a deployed wing flap. The wing flap was retracted. Very significant, probably the most technically significant piece recovered.
And for viewers who are not familiar, if you are going to do controlled ditching or any sort of landing whatsoever, you deploy the flaps. You set them out to the maximum to give you the maximum amount of lift and at the lowest possible speed. And that's critical to a safe landing, whether it's on a runway or whether it's on the ocean. So that's the significance of that find, as Blaine said. The damage done to that flap uh, could only be done if it was in its retracted position. So that's why it's so significant. Now, also
Yes,
you've got the nose gear landing door you found or was found, and so let's talk about that, Blaine.
that is a very significant piece. I was in Ansirica, Madagascar on June 26th of 2016. I was putting the word out in the village for local people to bring me anything that might be from the aircraft. And this one guy brought me this piece that was very heavy. And I recognized from the honeycomb and the carbon fiber polymer that it was from the plane and the typical Malaysia Airlines gray. And he brought that to me on the Madagascar Independence Day. And I gave a reward, a small amount of money, which in Africa means a lot to anyone who brought me pieces of debris. So I gave him that, and he spent it, I think, to get beer and drink for everybody to in the village. And he told me that they did not know what it was. They had no idea to be on the lookout for debris. So his wife was using it as a washing board.
Yep.
But this is the nose landing gear door, and it is very significant because it shows that the landing gear door shattered. And I really think that more forensic analysis should be done of this landing gear door to determine more about how the plane impacted the water.
Yeah. Now we've also got the vertical stabilizer. That's the tail for those who are not familiar with that terminology. Tell us about that one, Blaine.
Yes, I did not find that. That was found by a man in Mozambique. And what it shows that is significant, for one thing, it's got the red on it from the tail. You can see on the tail where it is from. What's significant there is it again supports a high speed crash that shattered the aircraft. when the Ethiopian Flight 961 ditched in the Comoros Islands, you can see the whole intact tail floating in the water. This is a very small shattered piece of the vertical part of that tail. So it is also a very significant and recognizable piece of debris.
Now, you've also listed there's interior panels and cabin partitions. Again, more material and also floor panels. I'm grouping those together because they're all from the interior, but perhaps you can speak briefly to each of those three, Blaine.
Well, the partition panel was one of the more recent pieces of debris to actually wash ashore. That was in August of 2018. It was still floating around and washed ashore. Again, showing that the main cabin, the main fuselage shattered on impact. And the floor panel actually had an identifying part number that allowed them to match it to Malaysia 370 parts. And those pieces, again, simply show that this was a high-speed crash that tragically shattered the aircraft. And it's helpful to the underwater search companies to know that they're looking for a debris field similar to Egypt Air 804 of small shattered pieces, not an intact aircraft.
No. Well, of course, you're going to get the forward fuselage, the wing box, and the rear fuselage, and the undercarriage, and you're going to get the engines themselves. But yes, you're right. The debris field will be spread out, not as you suggest, not just one intact aircraft. Another one you've got here is a base plate vortex generator. Perhaps you can explain to viewers what that is.
If you're sitting at the window and you look at the engine next to you, there's a little fin that protrudes from the engine cowling. And what this is that is the base plate of that fin. And it is also very heavy. And the reason that it is so significant is that when I showed it to a picture of it to a Boeing engineer, he said, I've never seen something like that separate on impact. This is a very high speed impact. And the very sad thing about that piece of debris is that it has never been officially analyzed. I handed it in through my friend. After we handed it in, the consul who was responsible for delivery of debris was assassinated. The debris sat there in Madagascar for 2 years during the investigation into his death. I went there and I helped arrange for delivery of it to Malaysia. It was finally delivered to Malaysia in September of 2019. No investigation conducted, nothing published at all. It's a significant piece that shows that even the engine cowling shattered on impact.
Look, indeed, and of course the evidence of that is the Roy piece, which is the emblem for the Rolls-Royce engine as part of the cowling, and that's just a little fragment of that was washed up. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yes.
Now we've also got we've also got the right wing spoiler.
Yes, that is the most recent piece of 370 debris to be found washed ashore. It was found by a surfer during coronavirus lockdown in Jeffreys Bay, South Africa in 2020. It had a lot of markings on it. It could even have some numbers on it. We don't know. It was delivered to Malaysia for investigation in, I believe, February of 2021. And as yet, nothing has been published, no investigation has been done on it. And that is very sad because it should be. It's been identified by experts from photographs as a spoiler, but nothing yet on it from Malaysia.
The next piece and the second last piece on your list, which fascinates me, Tatterley.
Yes, this debris I saw in the yard of a fisherman in Ansirica in November of 2022, and I handed it in to Madagascar authorities in December. And the reason that it is so significant is not only is it clearly from the plane, it is also has the honeycomb, the carbon fiber polymer, the Malaysia Airlines off-white, and 4 parallel slices in it that probably occurred at impact with the water, perhaps from the engine blades of the aircraft. So that piece of debris can tell us a lot about how the plane impacted the water, if perhaps someone was flying it at the time or not. It's a significant piece. It has been sitting in Madagascar for more than 2 years now because Malaysia has not paid for delivery. Now, some people claimed it was from a yacht. It is not from a yacht. It is from aviation, Malaysia 370, Boeing 777. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But in any case, it needs to be delivered to Malaysia and investigated. It's just a matter of Malaysia paying for the courier. It has been very discouraging to me that the last 4 pieces of debris that I have collected from local people and handed in have never been officially investigated by Malaysia. And it's not just me. There are 6 other pieces of debris found by different people in 6 different countries that have not been investigated by Malaysia.
Well, the last one on your list is the broken O panel. Perhaps you can tell us what a broken O panel is, Blaine.
Well, that's because it appears to be an O or a black circle or semicircle on a piece of debris that is clearly of aviation origin. I got that from Ansirica, Madagascar. It's an exterior panel or something perhaps inside the cargo. I transported it myself to Malaysia and have it privately examined by experts. And they said that it is definitely of aviation origin, consistent with materials on a Boeing 777. They did some tests of the composite layer. They handed it back to me. I handed it to the families. The families handed it into Malaysia on March 8, 2024, and still no investigation has been done. Now, that piece again, some people who didn't like what they thought this might mean or didn't want any more debris that could interfere with their end of flight scenario claimed that this was from the Team Vestas winged yacht. It's not. It's not from a yacht. It's from a plane, and it needs to be investigated. I already delivered it there myself. The families handed it in. We need to see a report on that.
Yes, I mean, we've learnt an enormous amount from the debris that's been collected, much of it by you, and but so much more could be learnt from the pieces that have not been properly investigated. There could be some extraordinary telltale clues, and so often with aviation air crashes, the tiniest little detail can tell you so much about what happened to bring to a tragic close so many lives. So on that note, Blaine, thank you very much indeed for joining me today to go through this list of debris that you consider the most important. A full list of all the debris will be on the website 42,000 feet. That'll be published very shortly, and a link will be posted in this description of this video below. So Blaine, once again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you again as the search unfolds through 2025.
Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey, and all of the floating debris that I and other private citizens found, collected, and handing in. all of that will be in vain unless it leads to renewal of the search, signing of the contract, and finding the underwater debris field, the main wreckage, and the truth. We need to renew the search, find the truth, and give the families and flying public the answers they deserve. Thank you so much.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you, Blaine.